Hi everyone, this is Team G2, and the topic we decided on is sustainability issues in supply chain with fast fashion. So this is the agenda that we have. We are going to discuss what fast fashion is, along with the statistics behind the rise of fast fashion in most recent years. We will also discuss sustainability in terms of the rise of it, companies who are, how to be more sustainable, and if it's even achievable. And finally, we will discuss the impact this has on consumers and how consumers can also be more sustainable. So let's get started. What is fast fashion? Fast fashion is the production of rapidly producing high volume of clothing. These clothings are generally cheaply made, and also trendy for one-time use. And they primarily use cheap synthetic material, which is very harmful to the environment. And many companies rely on fast fashion as it provides profit while having the cheapest labor costs. The cheap labor costs and cheap cost of the product attracts many people to buy it. Although cheap and trendy clothing are very attractive to consumers, there are a lot of issues with it. Some of the issues with fast fashion are a lot of waste in landfills, unfair wages and poor working conditions, CO2 and other greenhouse emissions, water waste, animal cruelty, and animal cruelty. So globally, there is one garbage truck of textile waste dumped at a landfill or burnt every second. This is a staggering amount and contributes a large amount of waste yearly. And many fast fashion companies produce garments in underdeveloped countries where workers are paid under the living wage. And there are also many poor safety and health conditions, along with long working hours and the constant pressure to produce all lead to an environment of work exploitation. There have also been a lot of issues of child labor accusations to a lot of the fast fashion brands. Fast fashion has a huge carbon footprint resulting in from material creation, manufacturing, transportation, and even textile waste decomposing in the landfills. For example, most of the fast fashion clothes are made from petroleum-based materials, which is very harmful to the environment. And another issue is water waste. The fashion industry is one of the largest water consumers in the world right now, and the water is consumed not only for washing the garments, but also during manufacturing and dyeing and finishing processes. Just to put into perspective, it takes about 2,500 liters of water to make one cotton shirt and 7,000 liters to make just one pair of jeans. That's a huge amount of water wasted that can be given to people who are living in dehydrated countries. Another issue is animal cruelty. Leather bags, shoes, fur coats, and other goods made from animal leather, feathers, and wool affect and the animals' population in the world. And this also affects our planet because we need animals for the survival of humanity. As you can see from this chart, the profit of Shien has increased through the years from 2019 to 2022, increasing at a large amount, especially during the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. This was because everyone was home and there was nothing to do besides online shopping. It was during this time that many ethical and environmental issues of the fashion industry came about, which led to people switching from fashion that was environmentally friendly. In more recent years, there's been a rise of sustainability in terms of supply chains and also fast fashion. So there was a video of a Shien factory worker that was exposed where a worker was making below minimum wage and also working in poor working conditions, and these were documented. And there's also been a lot of environmentalists trying to practice and encourage sustainable fashion by reaching out to the government and also companies. As a result, many companies were being pressured from the public to make change since they don't want to wear something that was made from exploiting other people. And as a result, many companies started adopting sayings such as cruelty and vegan free on many of the clothings. So these are some companies who are versus some companies who are sustainable and versus who aren't. So some companies that are sustainable are companies such as Reformation, Patagonia, Mud Jeans, Organic Bases, Nadam, and Allbirds. And some main companies who aren't sustainable are Shien, Zaful, Uniqlo, Topshop, Fashion Nova, and H&M. So there are many ways for companies to be sustainable um, while also not losing profit. So one way for that is having customizable clothing. This can reduce mass production, mi mass producing millions of garments only for them to be dumped into a landfill 6 months later. Another way is to reduce environmental impact. They could switch to more natural and eco-friendly materials such as cotton, linen, or wool. And another is to improve ethical practices. If a company wants to promote their ethical practices, it takes complete transparency in the supply chain and also ensuring that workers are compensated and treated fairly. Another way is for companies to have sustainable packaging. Ideally, sustainable packaging should be sourced responsibly and designed to be safe and effective, made from renewable energy, reusable within its lifetime, and recyclable at the end of its lifetime. And they can also change their brand's message because if they want their brand to be taken seriously when it comes to sustainability, then they have to make sustainability part of their brand and they have to promote Go Green. They should start making slogans that are Go Green and make it a part of their company.
There are three challenges for fast fashion companies to practice sustainability. The first is transparency. Within a supply chain, each segment is separate, but intended to work together to accomplish a mutual goal. However, if there's any sense of lack of communication or unknown interests or agendas, it is almost impossible for each segment to be completely trusted. With how we know how complex and convoluted a supply chain can be, especially in a fast environment that expects immediate results from their demand. If even one part of a segment is divided from the rest, the supply chain can never be sustainable. A perfect example of this was the beer game that we experienced in class. Without communicating and without knowing our own interest and needs, that supply chain could never last. It barely lasted an hour, where each position focused on their own desire and got their own results. The retailer worried about their demand, while every other department worried about supplying and meeting their own. So without communicating and without having that built trust, these supply chains can never last and be sustainable to the world. The second challenge is the constantly changing of goals and circumstances. Within any retail location, demand always changes, but especially when your retail motto is fast and cheap product. Fast fashion requires immediate decision making that may require the completion of short-term wins over long-term goals. A company such as H&M or Zara doesn't have the time and resources to push off immediate sales or profit gains to be sustainable in the future. Their competition will blow them by and their customers will leave. A quote here is fast fashion companies thrive on fast cycles, rapid prototyping, small batches combined with large variety, more efficient transportation and delivery, and merchandise that is presented floor ready on hangers with price tags already attached. This completely explains that when these products are produced, they need to be sold, and that's it. If these products stay on the racks, the company is not going to be around much longer. The third challenge is obsolescence. So, due to the constant cycle of changing demand, these fast fashion companies must continue to update the products they sell. So, for example, 5 years ago, a certain style may have been really popular, but today nobody wants to buy it. So, it's really hard for a company to understand not only what could happen next week, but what can happen 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and how they can be sustainable during those periods because it can change in a heartbeat. A common barrier for H&M and Zara are that their customers are solely interested in new products that are setting trends or popular among their demographic. They do not have the same concerns about a fast fashion company's sustainability that that maybe like the agricultural client base may have. When you go out and buy a t-shirt, you're not really thinking about how this affects the company, but also their sustainability. But when you're buying maybe vegetables or farm product, that actually may be a concern that is this product I'm buying doing right by the world? So therefore, if fast fashion customers are having these thoughts and actions, it's really difficult for these companies to focus on being sustainable when their demand is so strong to have quick, cheap product. Another quote here is fast fashion replaces exclusively glamour, originality, and luxury with masculinity and planned spontaneity, meaning that there isn't much thought process. It is that shirt is nice. I like it. It's cheap. I can get it right now, and that's it. Fast fashion is not only its own segment, it kind of controls the fashion industry. In an article from Kenneth P. Pucker, who was the former COO of Timberland, he wanted Timberland to be sustainable and have a sustainable future forever. But customers and even maybe ourselves want those cheap products and they want them now. So, to be able to do this, Timberland would have to kind of give in to their own motto of being sustainable to have consumers purchase their products. So it was almost a one or the other type choice. A really interesting fact here is that when we talk about sustainability for the environment, that three-quarters of the production of shirts and shoes are either burned or placed in landfills. So not only are these products being produced like super fast, but they're also being discarded really quickly and really poorly. So this another part of this is that there is so much competition in fashion and the retail industry that let's think of Black Friday just passed. People are going from store to store to store, almost looking for the same product, but looking for the best deal or the best of their liking. Stores like H&M and Zara are going to have those deals. Their products are going to be really cheap and they're going to be really enticing to the impulsive customer. However, they almost got beat or currently by another company called Shien. They've been producing similar products, t-shirts, shoes, stuff like that, at lower cost. So now down the like hierarchy tree, Timberland is not only competing with fast fashion, but now they're competing with people trying to beat fast fashion. So Timberland really needs strong customer loyalty to even think about sustainability. And in today's world, that's really hard to find. So to beat these fast fashion companies, Shien used fossil fuel materials. Polyester, which is now the leading synthetic fiber, it makes up half of all fiber production. It uses, as this quote says, requires a great deal of energy for extraction and processing and releases significant byproducts. So in this scenario, not only are companies that are trying to practice sustainability being ignored or beaten by their competitors, but the way that their competitors are doing this is hurting their own sustainability. It's almost two problems merging into one huge problem. Another really interesting fact that I came across of is that we all think that recycling something means we're doing really well for the world, that that recycled product is we're going to see it back somewhere. However, in this article, that these stores, specifically H&M, are using this as almost like a placebo effect, where they're making their customers or even themselves feel like they're doing something really good, but less than 1% of the materials that are recycled are actually seen in new products. This is also because of some of the practices that companies like Shien are doing, that they're producing these products in such a poor manner that they're not even recyclable, that the product is so poor and the way it was made is that there's nothing to take from it after it's been worn out. So these poor materials cause these new products to lose their value after washed a certain amount of time, which now causes the owners to say, well, I bought this shirt for $15. It's worn out. I'm just going to throw it away and then get a new one. So regardless of which path they're choosing, that t-shirt that is being mass produced and sold so rapidly is finding its way in landfills or being burned into the air, a massive problem not only for companies trying to practice sustainability, but for companies that are completely ignoring it and adding all these issues. It needs to be said that it's not only a company's fault that they can't practice sustainability. A study was conducted with 20 to 35-year-old fast fashion consumers in Hong Kong and Canada, two of the biggest fast fashion selling countries. They wanted to gain information about their habits and what was their thought process when they were buying these products. It was concluded that most of these consumers did not think of sustainability. However, they did care about the environment. As we spoke about just with a company like Shien, it contradicts itself that we're not worried about buying this t-shirt. It's a t-shirt in our mind, but we care about the environment, but you can't do both because you buying that t-shirt is causing harm to the environment. It, in my opinion, it seems that consumers don't have a full grasp about what they're purchasing and how it really does affect the environment. So considering this information, fast fashion companies like H&M and Zara would be going against their overwhelmingly strong customer demand. That if these consumers are not caring about sustainability, that they want their shirts, they want their pants, whatever, that is, these companies would have to make a strong decision to either ignore that demand and practice sustainability or go where the money is, which seems to be the common practice. Because in reality, in the business world, that if these companies decide to go practice sustainability, their competitors probably won't. And those same customers that were buying your product are going to immediately switch to these other ones. For example, if a company like Zara decided to say, let's practice sustainability, they probably would get a decent amount of consumers that would back them and stay loyal to them. However, there's going to be a large portion of saying, we don't necessarily care about your company being sustainable. We need to buy a t-shirt now and we'll go to H&M, which doesn't seem that a company like Zara could last too much longer when they're getting completely blown by their competitor. So in this case, if these companies want to practice sustainability, the demand's not going to let it, which kind of gives the supply chain not much of a choice, and then they're going to have to pursue the profit and meet the demand. So the question then comes, is it even possible for fast fashion to be sustainable? There's four strategies that can maybe let this happen. called grafting, fertilizing, hybridizing, and transplanting. What these four strategies have in common is that the company is going to need to change. They're going to need to change their philosophy, and they're going to have to understand that sustainability is something they need to pursue. That's the first step. The second step is understanding that their customers may need to be loyal to them. That saying, an example, Zara is going to sell this new t-shirt. It's a little more expensive and it took a little bit longer to get here, but this t-shirt is doing right by the world. It is environmentally safe and is giving back there. They need to convince their customers to buy that product for why they're doing it. That's really difficult to do in the sense of that these are cheap products. If we were talking something a little bit like a larger purchase, like a car, people are worrying about sustainability there, like moving away from gas vehicles into electric vehicles because they think they're doing right by the world. But when you're buying one t-shirt, it's really hard to gain a strong trust, a strong sense of customer loyalty. So the question that arises, do companies like H&M or Zara even have this customer loyalty to make these switches, or are they handcuffed? So in my opinion, with these current expectations of consumers, that their demand of what they want, with the need to be profitable to compete against their competitors, the answer is no. And the other reason I say this is because fast fashion, you can get the what it is from the word. It's fast, it's cheap, and it's readily available. So now if they go away from being this fast producer and seller, they're just fashion that they completely lost their niche to their market. So they kind of move back to where stores like Timberland are, where you're buying for the brand and you're buying because of the product quality. You're not buying because it's fast and cheap. So they're just like any other store. The other issue here is that no matter if customer loyalty is there, if not, they can't force a consumer to recycle or throw away their use or not throw away their used product. That H&M themselves said that their products usually are washed about 10 times before the value of the shirt is lost, meaning like it's not how it was when it was sold. So in most cases, consumer will throw away that t-shirt and then go buy a new one for less than $20. And then even if they decide, even if a place like Zara, H&M convinced their consumers, like we need to recycle these shirts so we can be sustainable, even less than 1% are actually used to make new products. So it becomes a bigger issue here where that you need to focus on materials used. So polyester would not be the choice. That these materials may be more costly, maybe more costly to both, and it will to the company and to the consumer, and it may take longer to produce, but the long-term sustainability of the product outweighs that fast and cheap decision. So as we kind of talked about with the graph and the four strategies, that unless there's a collective agreement that every consumer believes in sustainability and that the fast fashion companies, then that's all of them, because it can't just be one or it can't be just two. It has to be a collective agreement that we need to practice sustainability for greater good. Because again, in this business world, there will always be that one competitor that says, we don't care about sustainability. We're going to still mass produce fast, cheap material because the demand is there. So if that demand isn't there anymore, then companies would be less likely to do that. But there will always be that kind of agreement between demand for these products and then the supply for these products.
So there's also alternate ways for consumers to be sustainable. So in more recent years, thrifting has been on the rise, and many people are also using resale websites like Mercari, Depop, and Poshmark to sell their own to sell their clothing rather than buy new ones. And this can help reduce the carbon footprint that's been on the environment from fast fashion. And these are our references.